Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be on the call this morning. We're going to be going over something that is near and dear to me, something that's helped me to have a lot of success. And seeing as though we're at the end of the month, I can't believe we're at the end of another month and we're actually going into the month of December, the last month of the year, in the last quarter, getting prepared for what I believe is going to be one of ACN's largest years to date in 2023, with all of the things that are happening in the world today, with all the disruption, people that are, I mean, you guys have seen some of this in the news. The tech companies are laying off thousands upon thousands of people. People are figuring out where they want to be in life. They're changing direction. All these things culminate to create a perfect storm of opportunity for you and I. And all we have to do is share during this time when most people in the back of their mind, they're thinking, where am I going to be in 2023? What is that going to look like? And how am I going to be able to provide for myself, my family? And instead of just weathering the storm, how can I move the needle through the storm to come out on top while everyone else is just looking to remain where they're at? So it's a great time to be in the company, great time to be alive. Now, to just give you a little bit about my background, for those of you, if this is their first time meeting me, my name is Julian, and prior to getting involved with this project, I was a senior systems engineer. I was working roughly 80 to 90 hours a week at my job. I was averaging 50 to 60 flights a year, which put me in a situation where I really didn't have a lot of time for myself or my family. But good fortune came my way. I was introduced to this project by my first mentor in this industry, who shared with me a system that allowed me to replace my six-figure income and enabled me to come home to my family. But most importantly, I was able to become the type of father that I felt my daughter deserved. And as a lot of you know, 2 weeks ago, my daughter and I, we went to tour some colleges, and I'll tell you, just to see the look on her face and how excited she was, and seeing how much she's worked on herself, worked on her system of learning, which one day, if you want to talk, we could talk about that. But she worked on her system of learning, and she's creating results for herself, where I'm guiding her, but she's doing the work. And I'm so excited for who she's becoming as a young woman, and where she's planning on focusing her time and energy after high school. But I owe the time that I'm able to spend with her and family and loved ones, I owe it all to the training and support that I got here in this company. And so before I get started, I had to say something. So if you notice, I have a little bit of a darker, a little bit of a mustache that I'm rocking right now. And so if you're wondering what that is that a new? No, it's not a new thing. I would highly recommend, if you're not aware of Movember, hashtag, you can type in Facebook, Instagram, hashtag Movember, Movember. So the mustache is for Movember, so we'll be going away, but it's for a good cause, and it's dealing with men's health and men's mental health. So I just had to put that out there. So no, it's not a new fad I'm rocking, but it will definitely be gone at the end of the month. So with that, let's get right into it. What I wanted to talk about is a training that I got when I was brand new in the business. And I really want to speak to those of you that are brand new, or leaders that are attempting to help launch brand new people. And, a lot of times we talk about leadership concepts, mindset, all of that is important. But then when we get down to the mechanics of building the business, a lot of people are confused as to what a launch looks like. I remember my mentor, I was a little frustrated because I told my mentor I didn't really get launched. And then he looked at me and he asked me a question. He said, did you get qualified in the time needed to generate a bonus? I said, yes. Did you enroll people and get promoted to your first position and get a fast start bonus? I said, yes. He said, do you know how to do a presentation? I said, yes. He said, do you know how to acquire? I started getting where he was going with that. So I had been launched. So I want to say a disclaimer before we get going. The methods that your mentor or upline are using that are helping you to get the results that I just mentioned equate to a launch. They might not use the exact same words that I'm using. They might move things into a different part of the process. But if you're getting those results and it's scalable and it's something that you can duplicate, then you're being launched. So you want to take the things that you can glean from what I'm sharing with you right now, the things that resonate with you that you want to be able to work with and build, take those things. But also understand that whoever you're working with, because it's different, doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. Everyone has a little bit different way that they do it. But if they're getting results, I recommend putting your head down, following that, getting the results, and just adding the things that you learn from these calls to your tool belt so that you can generate and be flexible with the be flexible with the road that you're taking to get to the destination you want to get to. All right, so let's talk about launching a little bit. So when I first got started in the business, I remember like yesterday, my mentor sitting down with me, he realized that, I had gotten some results, but I hadn't moved past a certain point. And so he decided to sit down with me. He had flown into town and he said, you know what, we need to link up. Let's meet at Starbucks. So we met at a Starbucks in Mission Valley. And I remember sitting across from him with the window to the left of us in the front of the coffee shop. And right above us was a Starbucks sign. It's not in the window anymore, but at that time it was right there. I remember because he bumped it on accident. He was getting hyped when he was talking about what we were doing. And so we were sitting facing each other. And he said, okay, Julian, do you have your list? So for those of you that aren't familiar with the list, a list is a list of contacts, names, and numbers, people that you're associated with. Notice I didn't just say people that you know, because a lot of times when I say people that you know, people think, oh, that must mean everyone that I'm close to. And so they'll create a scenario in their mind that they're comfortable with. And so here's how it looked like to me. The first thing my mentor said is, I need you to write a list of everyone that you know. And so when he asked me to write a list of everyone that I know, I wrote down a list of maybe like 15, 20 people. And he said, Julian, wait, these are all the people you know? So why did I write a list of only 20 names and numbers if my mentor asked me to write a list of everyone that I know? The reason why I did that is because I translated what he said. And I need to go over this with you because we all do it. So my mentor asked, can you be 100% coachable? I said, yes. In my mind, the translation was, yes, I can be 100% coachable to the things that I am not extremely uncomfortable with and to the things that make sense to me. Is that 100% coachable? Is it? Come on, guys. Is it? No, it's not 100% coachable. How many of you have done that before? Be honest with me. You can put it in the chat, yes, if you've done it before. I know for me, when he said it, my mind went to what was comfortable. And I said, okay, he probably doesn't mean write a list of everyone. Some of these people on my phone, I don't even know who they are. There were names in my phone that were saved with misspelled, or it was saved with L or G or something like that quick because I was on the go. And so there's no way he could have meant those people, right? So I said he probably was saying write everyone you know because he wanted me to think bigger. I get it. So I'm going to write down these 15 to 20 people that I think are the right fit for ACN. How many of you prejudged before? How many of you realize that in the training, it tells you not to prejudge? But we still prejudge, right? I was doing it in the moment that I was telling him that I was going to be 100% coachable. So that was crazy. First of all, I wasn't being 100% coachable. Second of all, I didn't write down all the people that I knew. All right. And so he looked at my list. He looked at me. He asked me, are you sure these are all the people that you know? And I said, what do you think I said? I said, yes. Here's what happened. I said, yes, these are all the people that I know. And in my mind, I said that I think would be interested. But all I gave him was part of my conversation. Yes, these are all the people that I know. And he said, that's interesting. Let's move on. And so he said, here's what I need you to do. I need you to call the first person on the page. So I'm skipping, it's like a montage. I'm skipping through some parts. The before I called anybody, he helped me to role play an approach. And for sake of time and sake of saying, okay, I like that approach, I like another approach. Look, all approaches that deal with can you do me a huge favor and deal with your mentor's way of inviting have worked, or they would not be regional directors, regional vice presidents, etc. So they work. So whatever the approach that works is, back then, there was a little bit of a different approach because that was over a decade ago than there is today. So he role played with me an approach that worked, and I had it down. I was able to respond with a solid approach to the conversation he said may happen when I call people and start inviting. And so when he said, I said, wait, what do you mean call people? Oh, I can call people when I get home. I don't want to call people here at Starbucks. So why do you think I said that? In my mind, I convinced myself that I don't want to call people in Starbucks because it was too loud. It was too busy. I was going to get distracted. There were things going on. The baristas were making too much noise in the back. I started making up all these reasons as to why I would get a better result if I went home and did the phone calls without him. And so it was a great case that I was building. The truth was, I was nervous because I had never done this before. I was uncomfortable and I didn't feel comfortable being watched while I was doing it. Why? Because I was afraid I was going to make a mistake, and making mistakes is embarrassing. So I'm telling you right now, because we've all done it. And if you're new, you may have thought about doing this, but I'm telling you right now, it's necessary to do the calls in front of your mentor, because there are things that you will go on autopilot and say out of your mouth that have nothing to do with the approach. And you don't even know that you said it. You almost black out. You just go into a different dimension, and your mouth is talking and your brain is not connected to your mouth, and you're saying things that are not conducive to enrolling people or inviting them out. And so you wind up not inviting people or being effective at it, and then you think that the system doesn't work. It's not that the system doesn't work, it's that you weren't doing the system. You were doing something completely different because your brain shut off. And so it's important to have your mentor there, because your mentor is going to be able to see if your brain's on or if it's shut off. And there's something that they can do to help you when you get into that situation. Okay, so go back to it. So we went over, we role played, felt confident. He said, "Great, you feel confident?" I said, "Yes." He said, like, let's make some phone calls. I'm like, oh, wait, no, I want to make some phone calls at home. He said, no, here's the thing. I need to watch to make sure you're great. And I tried to convince him. And I said, no, I'm great. I'm great. You're a great trainer. This is amazing. I'll do well. I'll just go home. And he said, no. He said, you don't know how this works. He said, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I need to see you do it. And I said, okay. In my mind, I'm like, this guy is not going to let me leave. Let's go ahead and get this done. So he said, here's what I want you to do. I need you to call the first person. All right. So here's what it looked like. I took the list and I started scrolling. I want to show you what this looked like. I took the list and I was scrolling my finger up and down the list. And my mentor looked at me and he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm looking for the first person to call. And he said, Julian, that's very simple. The first person is at the top of your list. It's number one. You see number one who you have there? That's the first person. And I looked at it and I laughed. And I said, well, I don't even know why I put that person there. I can't call that person first. And he said, why? I said, because it's going to be hard. They're mean. They're difficult. There's no way that I can call that person first. And he said, here's why you have a problem calling that person first. He said, you forgot what we're doing. So guys, is our job to convince the people that we call that they need to show up to our meeting? No, our job is to call, expose them to what we're doing, and have those that want to support or are interested show up because they want to show up. So in other words, I was trying to sell, I thought I had to sell and convince. And so I was looking for the easier person that would be on my side on this thing. And he said, that's not what we do. He said, you want to call the first person, get the answer that they're going to give, and go on to the next one. And so I said, okay, I get it. So he said, start out at number one, work your way to number two, number three, go all the way down to 20. No matter who is on that line, call them and respond with the same approach that we role played so that you can get good at it. And here's what happened. I called number one and I was terrible. It was terrible. I was almost stuttering. I'm like, I don't stutter. What is this? And I realized I was nervous. And so I called number one and I got through it. I basically muscled through the approach. And he said, okay, next one. He didn't even let me breathe, guys. I was already like, my heart was racing. I hung up. I thought I was going to get a little bit of time to breathe, maybe a couple of minutes to go over what went well, what didn't, get some feedback so I could get ready for the second one. He said, no, let's not get ready. Let's call the second one. Okay. And so I called the second one. And that was okay. And then he said, okay, let's call the third one. And he said, let's call the fourth one. And what he was doing, he applied something. So for those of you that are launching people and those of you that are getting launched, he applied something that was extremely necessary to the process. Speed. Speed has to be a part of the process. And also, if you're taking notes, write this down. Repetition is the mother of learning. He understood that I couldn't have too much rest in between work because then I would lose the ability for repetition to be on my side. Okay? What do you mean by on your side, Julian? On your side, what is that? That means that if I had too much rest, I wouldn't create the repetitive pattern that would allow me to learn and get so good at this, approach that it would become second nature. Too much time gap would mean that I wouldn't be able to process and make it second nature. See, these are things I didn't know, but my mentor did. And so I find it funny how we have expertise in areas in our life, but not in ACN, but we want to tell our mentors how we should do it versus following their footsteps. And like Mr. Thomas says all the time, success leaves clues, like footprints in the sand. So you want to follow that. So he said, okay, number one, number two, number three. Listen, guys, by the time I got to number 5 on the list, I was decent. By the time I got to number 10 on the list, I was actually pretty good at inviting. But listen to this. By the time I got to number 20 on my list, I had mastered inviting. In fact, I was able to grow my list larger and I was more confident. Because I was confident, I wrote down everyone that I knew and I was going at it. I was making phone call after phone call and it started to become fun. And I realized that everyone was saying the same things, even though they were different people, they were saying the same stuff. So I didn't really have to wonder. See, the new me was so scared. What could they say? I'm not prepared for all of the things that they might say. Everyone's different. Everyone could have a different question. The truth is, majority of people had the same questions if they had any questions at all. And they leaned on the fact that they knew me and they trusted me and they were willing to see what I was talking about based on our relationship. not based on my wealth of knowledge. They knew I was new. So I was able to be new, and I was able to follow the system and master the approach. And because I mastered the approach, I was effective at inviting. And because my mentor made me do it in front of him, he applied the speed to the exposure that triggered the repetition that allowed it and it enabled it to become second nature to me. And he taught me by not allowing me to walk away from my list. See, if I was at home, I wouldn't have known all these things. And I would have called a person, got discouraged, waited about 5-10 minutes, thought about calling another person, maybe called 2 or 3 more people, said, this is not going as well. And I'm spending a lot of time, which I wouldn't have been. It would have felt like that because of all the thinking that I was doing. But because of that, I probably would have called 5-6 people and not gotten a result. And here's why that's scary. That would have carried into 5-6 people that I called. How many said they would showed up? I don't know, maybe 1 or 2. And now that's 50-50 chance. I might have had 1 person at my first event. And based on how it would have been going at that point, I would have made a judgment call on whether or not ACN was working. I need you to hear this, because some of you are making judgment calls on whether or not ACN works based on the fact that you're not working and you're expecting it to work anyway. And I had to deal with that. So I had to realize that, but I only realized it because I was coachable enough to sit with my mentor and allow him to make me uncomfortable by pushing me through a list and getting the result. And so because I kept going and I got confident and I started getting yeses, my list grew even more because I realized it wasn't about the individual. This was just about getting as many people on the list so that they could tell me whether they would show up or not. And because I did that, here's what happened. I had 25 people actually say that they would show up at my house. Out of those 25 people that said they would show up to see a presentation, 24 of them showed. And out of the 24 that showed, remember, I'm new. This is my first meeting. I had 9 people join the business. Back then, it was way more expensive to sign up in the business. And we didn't have technology like we do now. And all the meetings had to be in a home. So that meant you were driving from home to home. And so I realized, that being the system, here's what we did. We did a 6 o'clock and an 8 o'clock meeting for my team members. So when I was in town in the evening times, I would do a 6 and 8 and be all over the county, driving into East County. And I don't really care for East County. You guys know San Diego. It's not fun for me. Parking's terrible. But I would be there for the business. And we usually sign up people. I learned that when I leaned into the challenge that was uncomfortable, that is when I got the most results. I'm going to say that again. When I leaned into the challenge that was uncomfortable, that's when I got the most results. Why is that the case? It's because if you didn't know this, if no one ever shared this with you, I want to be the one to share it with you. Your challenges are just the underbelly of your blessings. They're not 2 separate things. They're one thing. But here's what's so scary. Most people run from or avoid their challenges instead of leaning into their challenges. And because they avoid their challenges or run away from their challenges, they're actually at the same time running away from their blessings. And if you can get great, if you can get okay with living in a state of being uncomfortable, where you hear people say, comfortable being uncomfortable, what does that really mean? Because seeing it that way, I don't think I like that, the way people said it. Comfortable being uncomfortable, that just means that I'm going to be dealing with irritation my whole life. And it's more like this. You have to become confident in your ability to be able to maneuver in the unknown. You have to be confident in your ability to figure things out in the unknown. What's beautiful about ACN is there's a system, and in the unknown, all you have to do is be supported. Your mentor is going to help you to follow the steps. You just have to put one foot in front of the other in the manner that your mentor is teaching you, but also in the speed. This is if inviting is a sprint. It's not a jog. And some of you that have been treating it like a jog and wonder why, you say, well, I've called as many people as you. How come I don't get the results? Because you're lacking speed from your equation. And if you applied the speed as a part of the process and you follow the system, you would get the results. So I wanted to just take you through that, because I know for me, I wish someone would have been who was a leader, President's Club, had a lot of success. I looked at them like, dang, they must be way different or special. And the truth is, all of us have been right where you're at right now. All of us have been uncomfortable with the process at some point in our careers. And what allowed us to be successful is to realize that when our feelings, like Greg Provenzano would say, president of this company, co-founder, when your feelings are not in alignment with your goals, sometimes you have to ignore your feelings. Your feelings are valid, but it doesn't make it true. And so you have the opportunity to understand, be aware, and take what you learned today and get the results that you want moving forward. Why? Because you can decide to be new today. Some of you are already new. Some of you have been in for a while. And at the end of the month, here's what I can tell you. A new month is coming. And you can decide to be new today, going into a new month, preparing for a new year and a new opportunity and results that can come along with it. So with that being said, Mr. Thomas, I'm done. I appreciate you for allowing me to share with everyone. I hope you get some value out of what I said. If you have any questions for me, you can always send me a message on IG, Instagram. For those of you that don't use it often, Julian Lewis. You can reach me there. But I do appreciate all of you. I appreciate each and every single one of you that have put your head down and are willing to do something uncomfortable to get something that you feel you value, and it's worth it for your family and the people you care about. Mr. Thomas, the call's all yours. Thank you again.